Hi, I'm Sofia Bernardi, mindset and business coach supporting ambitious new and rising coaches to master their mindset, create an aligned and profitable strategy, and grow a six-figure business and beyond using the Rising Coach method. I built a $500,000 business by the age of 24, and in this podcast, I will teach you the psychology, strategy, and energetics to do the same. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernardi. I am so excited, guys, because this week's episode is very unlike any other episode I have done on this podcast because I had the pleasure of interviewing one of my best friends, Em Manuel. So Em is a content creator / service provider. She helps women to live a fuck yes life, and she empowers women on her Instagram account, Salt and Whistle. Now, this is not your average Instagram account, guys. She has built her Instagram account to over 58,000 people through her incredible content. Just trust me when I say that. Go check out her account. She's a beautiful writer. She creates these incredible, inspiring, motivating, and empowering quotes. Just truth bombs of wisdom and, moves you in the right direction, as well as, lifestyle content and things like that. So definitely recommend checking out her Instagram account. But the reason why I wanted to bring Em onto the podcast is because she has a very, very inspiring story. She has gone through the trenches of lots of ups and downs, many difficult moments in her life, and yet always views life with the glass being half full. She's very optimistic and positive and wants the best for people. And in this episode, you get a real insight on how she manages it all, how she's overcome certain challenges, and you'll see where all of that wisdom and desire to help people really comes from. But what I love is that she really is juggling a lot of things, from a demanding full-time job to managing an Instagram account that is being seen by so many people as her Instagram account blew up and went viral, and building that business on the side, as well as really prioritizing self-care. That's not something that just, isn't a priority to her because she's so quote unquote busy with all of the things, right? She still very much prioritizes herself, her mental health, her physical health, and everything in between. And she has a really great social life, and I would know because I'm one of her friends. So she has this nice, well-rounded life of prioritizing everything that's important to her. And that's not an easy thing to do. It's so much easier to say, I don't have time, don't have capacity, I'm too busy, I can't because XYZ. And yet she's had all of those opportunities to have, all of the excuses and more, and yet has never let any obstacle get in the way of her dreams and helping other people to move towards their dreams as well. So you're going to love this episode. Her and I are so casual and laid back in this episode because we are such good friends. But also, this episode is full of bringing you, to the surface and calling you out and getting you to move forwards in the most loving way possible. So this is a great motivating episode if you want that little kick in the butt that you might be needing. That's exactly what this episode is. So enjoy this episode learning more about Em, her story, her journey, and all of the tips that she has for you if you are living a very full life, and how you can make the most of it and how you can get out of your own way to do the things that matters most to you. Enjoy. Hello, Em, and welcome to the Rising Coaches with Sofia Bernardi podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
For context, everyone, Em is one of my best friends, so this is probably going to be a lot of banter in this podcast, just saying.
We'll try and limit it slightly.
But I'm really excited about this episode because, for one, I think you're pretty cool.
Thanks.
But in all seriousness, you have a really cool story, and I think what people are going to get out of this episode is just realizing what is possible for them, and that you don't have to have trade-offs that take away your integrity or anything like that in between to get to where you want to be, essentially, like burnout, all of that sort of stuff.
Definitely.
So I'm really excited. So your Instagram account, Salt and Whistle, has impacted so many people and has reached such a large audience. Like at the time of recording this, you have about 58,000 followers, just for context, everyone, which is a lot of human beings looking at your content. And your Instagram is very much based around quotes and personal growth and inspiring and empowering people to live their best life, correct? Which is amazing. But what I think is more inspiring than the number of people is the way in which this has all come about. You weren't really focused on, I need to have all of these followers, I need to make this much money and being obsessed with the numbers. In fact, it was quite the opposite, which is often the better way to go about it, is focusing on what truly matters most, which is the difference you make, how you feel in the process, enjoying the process and everything like that. And that's really how you've gone and created a large following like this. And so I would love for you to share with everyone kind of what that journey looked like from following your passion and your heart to then creating a really thriving, quite large and ever-growing community.
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways I could speak to it. The first is, it's probably, I get a little bit hazy on the time frame, which plays into how much I don't focus on the numbers.
Yeah.
But we'll say loosely around 2 years. I would say it went from 300 to about 58,000. And the first jump in that was quite quick. But something that I think is really important to speak to, and I know we've spoken about this off mic quite a lot, is there's like 5 or 6 years before that, which is not part of the story because it's not the way that you talk about it, but that's the part that no one sees. And if that's not there, you don't go from the 300 to the 58,000. So that's the first thing that I would say. In terms of it being a sort of passion project, I honestly can't tell you like why I started it. It was sort of just like following what I was interested in, what I felt kind of like called to do. I have no idea what I was thinking or what my plan was. And I guess I've always wanted to do a business of some sort. Like I did a business degree at uni, and people actually used to say I was crazy because I would be at uni and I would say I want to do my own thing someday, and they would fire straight back and be like, yeah, okay, but like what is it? And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like I don't know that yet.
You just know that and you trust that.
Well, I was like, business is business, right? Like I know that I want to do something for myself. I don't need to know what that looks like. And at the end of the day, like I'll work that out. But to me, that wasn't the important part. It was like, I know that's the path that I want to follow and I'll worry about the details later. And I suppose even starting the account, like I was kind of just writing for myself, if I'm being honest. And a lot of that was sort of the more I embraced who I was and grew in confidence, that was more what I was leaning into. It wasn't really like a business plan. And I sort of just, even now, I trust it will morph into what it's supposed to be. So that's kind of the way I've always approached it. I don't claim to know what it's going to look like in 2, 5 or 10 years time. And I think if you go in with that mindset, you're also not pigeonholing yourself into saying, this is exactly what I want to do. And then you're kind of not open to anything else eventuating. So that's kind of how I've always done that, and was definitely the way it went. I never expected it to be as big as it is now. And to be honest, most of the time I just don't, it's just not what I focus on. I don't really
And do you feel like if you did focus on like in the early stages of needing to reach X number of people, make X number of dollars and all of that sort of stuff, that actually would have hindered your growth because of the perfection and the focus on it?
Yeah, I think you're focusing on the wrong thing because you're focused on, in that mindset, if you go out, you're not going to reach 10,000 people in your first week. And also no one did.
Just like, the unhealthy expectations around that and focusing on something that's external to you rather than like listening to the internal nudges of like, what do I actually feel called to do?
But you're also focusing on what you end up focusing on what you don't have rather than what you do have, because you're going in and you're like, oh, I need 10,000 people. And it's like, no, what about focusing on the 20 that are actually in front of you? And I know that. It sounds easy for me to say that when you've got the number, but even now it's like you obviously never reach, like I don't reach 48,000 people every time I post a story. That's not how social media works. And I've really had to you disassociate from the numbers, because that's not actually what matters. Like you can reach 50,000 people and make no sales, and reach 2 and make 1 or 2. Like,
because it just takes one person to buy, and it's about the quality, it's about the intentionality, the strategy. Yeah,
and the people I think it's like if you focus on the people you are reaching and the people you are serving, that multiplies rather than focusing on like numbers, but it's watered down.
I really love that, and thank you for sharing, because it is an incredible like community that you've created, an achievement, I suppose you could say, to have created a space that people feel safe to come to, and such a large number in such a short period of time. And I think that that's worth celebrating and acknowledging. But I love your transparency and like, yes, that happened in 2 years, but also, yeah, you have 5, 6, 7 years prior to that of life experience, business experience, studies, trial and error, other projects that potentially didn't grow as big, and, you know, lots of starting and stopping and ups and downs in between. And I think that so many people don't share transparently that side of things. Like we hear the stories of how I went from 0 to this in 5 days, and it's like, but did you? Yeah. Did you really? Like,
what did you do before the 5 days?
Yeah.
And I think it's probably worth sharing, and this is like counterintuitive, if anything, the last period of that, I would say maybe even the last 6 months, maybe 12 months, I haven't grown as rapidly as I did in the beginning, but I've actually had the opposite intention, in the sense that like, yes, we'll just like say there's 40,000 people, which is easier. I don't care if I lose 30,000 of those people and I have the right 10,000 that are left. And that's how I approach everything. Like if I'm pleasing everyone, I'm not doing it properly. So I'm actually not interested if there's 120,000 people, but they're not my ideal audience, my ideal client, whatever. It doesn't amount to anything. Cool, you've got something that says 120,000, which also worth speaking to, and I don't even know if we've spoken about this off mic, to be honest, but everyone else makes such a big deal of the number, and it means nothing. Like it's all external. People come across it and they're like, oh my God, you've got this many followers. And I'm like, who cares? Like what is beyond that? And I say that like as someone with that, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you still have bad days, you have good days, you have everything in between. Like I would never know had you not told me, or had I not seen it when I first met you. Like it's just like, it's a number, right? And that goes the same for anyone listening that maybe doesn't have quote unquote many followers or whatever. It's like that also means absolutely nothing about you as well.
It's also actually, if I'm being completely transparent, I think this is probably very controversial almost, but I think the less people you have, the bigger the opportunity is, because you have an opportunity to curate your audience to be exactly what you want, and then you have say 500-800 people that are ideally your customer. That is so much more powerful than having 20,000 people that aren't.
Were there lots of, you know, whilst this obviously wasn't an overnight success, it's still you've had a rapid growth in a short period of time. Like what was that like? Was that overwhelming? You know, were there challenges that came with that? Like,
definitely overwhelming. I had many days in the initial, I think, I can't remember specifically because, again, not focused on metrics, but when I had one post go viral, which is kind of where the initial influx came in. And then from there, because I have such shareable content, it just like compounds and grows over time. But the initial influx, I think I increased by about 6,000 in about 24 hours. And that was kind of like, I say this being so grateful for like what I have. I don't want it to sound like it's not. But yeah, super overwhelming. Like I couldn't I hated being on my phone. I would regularly just like throw it on the other side of the room, because every time you open it, it's just like constantly refreshing with like notifications and followers and stuff. And I know that a lot of people listening to that are probably like, oh my God, I want that. Like, why are you talking about it like that? But it is a lot.
Especially if you're not prepared for it. Like, because
it comes out of nowhere. It's a lot for your nervous system. And for me, like I had come off the back of doing that basically in secret for like 5 or 6 years. So I've gone from
it wasn't very secret.
Yeah, my family and my friends having no idea about what I'm doing, because I was too scared about other people's judgment or perception of like what I was doing. to having like thousands of notifications at once. So definitely like overwhelming from that perspective. But I also think it's important, and I don't even think this is just applicable to like followers. It's just like growth in any facet. So you can attribute it to like success or in any arena, like business, followers, whatever. But the more good, the bad also equally outweighs that. So it's like
sometimes people say like more money, more problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's not about the removal of problems. It's more just like upgrading the problems.
Yeah. And I think that's very true. But also like, yes, okay, cool. You're sitting there and you're like, I want more followers. I want more reach, whatever. And I'm like, yes, you're going to get great people.
Hold the opposite.
Yeah. You're going to get great people that follow you, but you're also going to get people abusing you in your messages or commenting shit that they don't like on your posts. And like, you get both. So I think the more people you have, the more you're exposed to people, and there's 1,000 different kinds of people, so you're just going to get more of them. And
I think that's
to keep in mind
such a good point. It's like so many people talk about like, I want this, I want that, like, but are you willing and are you able to hold like the equal opposite? Because that always comes with it. So it's like, you know, you may say you can hold $10,000 like from an energetic standpoint, but can you also hold like the challenges that come with that? Like if you're making $10,000 like per month, let's just say, like with that is probably at times like challenging clients or people wanting their money back or getting abused online, like you said you've experienced, and that
or
comes
people
with
in
it.
your life judging you because you're making $10,000.
And like not liking you anymore or not being like, you know, thinking that you've changed and all of this sort of stuff. So it's like, can you hold that? Because that's typically like what can come with it. And if you can't like hold that or something less than that, then you're also, it's going to be hard to hold the opposite essentially.
And I think that, I mean, I speak to this quite often, but it's literally like choose your hard.
You do. I love when you say that.
Because you don't get to escape it, right? It's just like, which one do you want?
Yeah. Speak into that more. Like, I love when you talk about it.
I think, well, it's like, even with the example you're saying, right? It's like you can have the $10,000 you want, or you can have the cushiness of everything staying the same. So we like to...
And that comes with its trade-offs as well.
Yeah. So it's like if you think about it in relation to like if people listening to this have like a dream or a goal they're trying to like aspire to, it's like doing the work to get there is going to be hard, but staying where you are is going to be hard too. And you just have to pick which one weighs more or what you're willing to move through and what you're willing to sacrifice, because moving forwards from where you are, whether it's in relation to like business growth, you as a person, your relationships in your life, like literally anything, there is fear and change and pain that you go through to evolve. And that's the price of moving forwards. But the price of staying the same is the fact that you don't live the dream, you don't get the thing that you want, whatever that thing is.
And neither is right or wrong. It's just like which
100%.
path do you want to go down.
And I think it literally doesn't matter what you choose, but you also have to take responsibility for the fact that you're choosing it.
Yeah. I love that. I wish more people could recognize that. And I, like from research, have found that humans are more likely to move away from pain than they are to move towards pleasure. And so I think this conversation is really important because it addresses like the hard side of this and actually focusing on that, because you're more likely to move away from the thing that you find harder. And so like, let's just say you right now view starting or growing your business like making the investments that come with that, taking the risks that come with that, taking the uncomfortable actions that come with that. Let's just say you want that and yet you are like choosing to stay in your comfortable quote unquote comfortable job and like the security with that. Like you need to link more pain to that and look at the cost of staying there long term in order to help you move towards the other one that is also hard. It just is packaged differently.
And I think also we as humans, like literally from a primal perspective, what we know is safe. So it's like you're literally trying to protect yourself. It sounds ridiculous when you put it in the context, but it's like from a primal perspective, you don't understand the fact new is dangerous.
Yeah, our brain is like hardwired to protect us from danger, and it perceives danger as something that just is out of our comfort zone, something we have not done at all or many times. And so that's why repetition and having support can really help you to like regulate those changes.
But also just
easier.
knowing that, like, this is new. My body thinks it's unsafe.
So this
is coming up for me, like, for a reason.
And it doesn't mean it's actually bad.
Yeah, I'm going to feel this. I'm going to keep moving.
So getting really comfortable in the
discomfort.
I love that so much. So aside from you not following the metrics and how that supported you, I know, being your friend, that there's also various other things that you really focus on that have supported you. And so one thing I've noticed is this need, like, you don't need a quick fix or a quick win. Like, you're willing to do this sustainably and in your own time, to not burn yourself out or, you know, have really great costs that come with needing the quick success. So, and then ironically, you've created a lot of quick success in terms of the metrics, right? And so, which I find so funny. Again, what you focus on will grow and, you know, where your energy goes and everything like that. And so, I would love to hear what you have to say around, like, the importance of not needing the quick wins and being in this for the long run and the benefits that has played for you.
No, I'm big on playing the long game. I think, again, so many different ways I could look at it, but you've got to, the thing I sort of live my life by is you never know when's going to be the day that changes everything. And if you don't keep going, you never get to find out if it's tomorrow. So I think that's something I hold on to when times are hard. Like, often we're further along than we think we are, but we don't know how far along we are. So we kind of get in our head and stop and second guess ourselves and go back. But it's like, you don't get to find out whether you're 90% of the way there unless you do the 10% to get to 100. So I think that's something that you can kind of hold on to. Even if you apply that to my story, like, yes, there's 5 or 6 years, I don't even know how long before that, then you've got the time that I've, like, put more time and energy into it. But it's like, I had one post that went viral. And if I hadn't have kept showing up, like, that would never have happened. But I also remember writing that and it was as, like, blasé as anything else I've ever written. There was nothing special about it. I didn't reread it. It's just something that, like, came out, trusted what I said. And if I didn't keep showing up like that, I would never have experienced that. So I think that's something you can kind of, like, hold on to.
Keep going.
Well, you never get to find, like, you don't get to find out if it worked if you're not showing up, right? So I think that's good. And I often, even now, use that. Like, if I quit today, what if tomorrow is the day that everything changed? So I like to hold on to that when you're, like, doubting things.
So essentially, how can you so sustainably continue, essentially, because it's about the long run of, like, you don't know when whatever's going to happen.
And I think circling back to what you said in terms of, like, burnout and that kind of stuff as well, it's like, if you're not looking after yourself and you're not going to be here to experience it, what's the point? And I think I hold on to that. Like, I don't want a quick fix that works for the next 6 months and then I don't want to do it anymore.
Which we have witnessed people do that. We've witnessed the people that are in it for the quick wins and, like, not willing to be in it for the long run, and, like, they're not doing this anymore.
No. And also, if you do that and you're burning yourself out, like, say you're, like, pedal to the metal and you, like, burn yourself out, you're not going to get to experience it on the other side. You're not going to keep doing it. And it's like,
you'll get there and you won't be happy.
Yes. And I think, I mean, that's a different conversation in itself, right? Like, living for the journey and not focusing on other things. But it's like, if you're willing to consistently be 1% better every day, like, I'm such a big advocate for that. It's like, how can you show up sustainably? Everything compounds. I think we like to overcomplicate things just as humans. And something I speak to with so many of, like, my own clients is, it's like, people like to add 46 items to their to-do list and then they get annoyed at themselves that they didn't tick them off when it was literally never sustainable for them to do, like, half of them in the first place. And I'm like, how about you just, like, do 2 or add the 46 and be okay with the fact that you did 2 because you were never going to do 46 anyway. Like, I think it's just like, how can you consistently and sustainably show up? And sometimes that means doing nothing.
Really listening to yourself. And, like, what I'm hearing here is progress over perfection.
100%.
Like, it's not about the perfection. Like, done is better than perfect.
Yeah, 1% better every day. And also, I think it's like, I'm such a big advocate of, like, give your best every day and be okay with the fact that what your best is changes. Like, my best today might be 40%, but I've only got 40%, so I gave 100. and I've got 80% tomorrow, so I'm going to give 80% and that's my 100. But like it's going to change.
Being okay with that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. And like with that, like integrity is also like has been a huge part of that. Like that, it sounds like those traits and beliefs that you have is coming from your values.
Yeah. I don't know, live and die by the fact I'm like, my integrity is not for sale. Like I literally do not care. I know I could do things differently and make, 5 times as much money tomorrow, and I'm just not interested because it doesn't align with what I want, and I refuse to like sell myself. And
that's actually so true. You have people reach out to you all the time for like reviewing products, getting things for free, getting paid to do things, and you turn it all down because it's not part of your bigger vision.
With what I'm trying to do. Yeah. It's like, yeah, cool, that's a quick fix. First of all, my integrity is not for sale, but also like, does that really support you in terms of where you're getting? And I guess that plays into playing the long game. Like, yeah, you could get something, but in my long-term vision, is that going to support me with getting from A to B? No.
Something that I'm really inspired by you is that going on with the whole integrity thing is you prioritizing obviously what matters to you and having, I don't really like the word balance because
doesn't exist.
Yeah, no one has balance, but you have prioritized many different areas of your life on this journey. Like you growing your business is not coming at the cost of your relationships, of your health, of your downtime, your inner peace, all of these sorts of things. You prioritize all of that at once, again, in the best way that you possibly can in the situation you're in, knowing that everyone's 100% looks differently from in different seasons of our life. But that's something I really admire about you, is that you just take radical self-responsibility. You really have no excuses that stop you. It's like you've gone through some really tough times and yet you're still showing up to the best of your abilities in all of the areas of your life. And you've been willing to have trade-offs. You've been willing to take risks and invest in yourself, even when, you're, like it's a bigger investment than what you're making in the beginning. Like you're willing to make those trade-offs and risks and things like that to bring your vision and mission to life, which is amazing. And so what I'm saying here is that that's the definition of like going all in, but that looks differently for everyone. And like you're also at the same time balancing managing a family business as well. And so I would love for you to speak into what this looks like and maybe any tips you have as well, because there are lots of people that say, I can't grow my business because I've got kids, or I can't grow my business because I'm working 9 to 5, or I can't work on my health because I'm doing XYZ. Like people have all these reasons why they can't have what they want. And I see you as like a shining example of someone who makes it work despite lots of things going on and managing it all. And I think you do a really good job at that.
Thank you for starters.
That was the freaking longest way of explaining that question.
I was like, which part of this would you like me to answer? No, so first of all, I would say, yeah, you can't do it like them, but you can do it like you. And I think that's where people go wrong, is like, if I'm comparing myself to someone who is full-time, who is full-time in their business, I'm comparing myself to you. I can't do it like you.
No.
But I can do it like me. And I think that's the first hurdle where people go wrong, is you say, I can't do X, Y, Z because you're comparing yourself to someone who has a completely different circumstance. And like, no, you can't do it like them. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it at all.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the first component of that. It's like you really have to quit the comparison of what other people are doing and be like, okay, what can I do rather than what can't I do? And I don't want to speak to specific situations, because I think, yes, I could provide solutions to like, oh, if you're in this situation, you can do this. But as soon as you start doing that for someone else, it's an excuse of like, you don't understand my situation, X, Y, Z. And I think that just puts up more barriers for people. So I think it's more important, like if you're individually reflecting, it's like, how can I make this work for me? If something's a priority, I genuinely believe you find the time. And I live my life by that, both in terms of what I output and what I don't want to say put up with, but like I focus on receiving that from other people as well. I think if you want something, you make it work. And I don't even want to sugarcoat that, because I think some people need to hear that. in the nicest way possible.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just I accept the fact that every day, every week, every month is going to look different, and different things are going to demand more of my time. So it will be different in terms of like what works for people, and I think it's important to like spend some time playing around with things and working out what that is for you. I have worked out I generally seem to work like in cycles of sorts, so I'll really amp things up, so to speak, for like 3 or 4 months, and that looks like often working in the morning, going to work and going into business mode for the day, working after work back into my business, spending hours on the weekend doing my stuff, and balancing that in between everything else you said. So I refuse to compromise on my health and sleep and stuff like that. It's just like not in alignment with my values, and I think you can do it in a sustainable way. And I don't show up as the best version of myself if I'm not looking after myself. So that always comes number one. And I totally recognize that I don't have kids, so I'm not going to speak to how you balance that. But for me, that's number one before work, before business, before anything. Like if I'm not looking after myself, nothing else works. And I think that's the first priority. But yeah, doing that, I'll do that pretty hardcore for a couple of months, depending on what I've got on. If I'm in the middle of a launch or a program or like launching a product or something like that, I'll do that for a couple of months. And then I honestly just give myself grace. I recently pretty much did nothing on business for like 4 weeks. That's what I needed.
And you did not give yourself a hard time for it. You just recognized that is actually what you needed in order to be in this for the long run.
Yeah, it's what I needed, both off the back of like I'd had a really busy couple of months with like launching and that kind of stuff. And then I knew I was going into a really I know the next couple of months are going to demand a lot of me, and I can't expect to do that if I'm not going into that recharged. So I've really worked out, it's like when you don't need to take 4 weeks off, and a lot of the time that's a little bit overkill.
But you just found that that's what you needed in that specific situation, not being boxing yourself of like it 100%. Has to be either this way or this way. It's like it depends on so many factors, and not giving yourself a hard time regardless.
100%. Like if that's you were going to do something on a Wednesday night but you've got home and you're genuinely tired.
Interrupting this podcast episode briefly to chat to you about my brand new free resource, the Q4 Momentum Plan to Multi-Six Figures. This is a free workbook that I've created just for you to plan out your Q4 to skyrocket your business now and in 2024. Planning completely changed my business and life, and in this workbook I am taking you through my exact framework that I teach to my clients and that I have personally used for years that has supported me to build my business to almost $1 million today. This is for you if you are serious about reaching your goals and you want to learn a proven process to do so. Head to the link in the show notes or go to sofiarosebernardi.com/momentum to download your free copy today.
I think the most important piece in this whole thing is you have to have developed self-honesty. Like I don't bullshit myself. It's like, do I actually need a rest, or am I being lazy and I need to go and do something? And that takes time and effort. But yeah, if you genuinely need a Sunday, take it. Sometimes I just need a weekend and I want to like watch TV and hang out with my friends, and I do it. And like you have to sacrifice life for business, but I think you also have to sacrifice business for life if you want to do both. And I interchange.
Yeah. And like, so what I'm hearing is like you prioritize and value lots of different areas of your life. Like we said, your health, your fitness, your relationships, your business, your career, everything like that. And there are trade-offs at times.
100%.
Like it's not the balance. Like they're all a priority, and different seasons will have different orders of what those priorities are, but you have your non-negotiables, but there are also very much trade-offs. Like sometimes you are having to get up really early to work on your business before you work on someone else's. Sometimes you are working late at night. Sometimes your days off and your weekends are spent working versus, you know, doing the things that quote unquote you might want to be doing, like hanging out with friends or whatever. Like for example, just for full transparency, it's like Sunday 10 o'clock at night and we're recording this episode where we could be doing so many other things, but this is actually something we very consciously chose to do, and we've had such a fun day. Like, you know, that sounds like we have been hustling all day, by the way, when really been taking photos. We have had a cocktail. We've gone out for dinner. We've, I've gone for a walk. You've gone for a walk. Like we've done so many things.
Breakfast with my family.
Yeah, we've had such a full and abundant day, and this is a decision we've made because like this is a short-term trade-off in the sense of like this is something we want to do, and we recognized, today that this would actually be the best time to do it as opposed to, doing it in not the best way at a later point. So trade-offs.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you are always choosing something. And just off what you said in terms of like you pick things in different seasons, I mean, I had a week last month, I think, and I was wrecked.
Yeah.
And the priority for me that week, it's like in order for me to show up for everything else in my life and myself, I need sleep.
Yeah, and that you did.
And I did. I slept a minimum, I reckon, 10 to 12 hours every night that week.
I didn't hear from you much that week.
But that's
you were asleep.
But that's the trade-off, right? It's like I didn't speak to anyone in my life because I was like, I need to work and sleep.
I was like, something's not okay here. Usually I'm talking to you 24/7.
And I don't have time for anything else. But that's like a classic example. Like in that moment, that was the priority. You
could have forced yourself to be up because that's what you quote unquote should be doing.
Yeah.
But you just listen to yourself.
Yeah, which it's not an easy thing. It's an easy thing to say, but I also want to recognize it's not an easy thing to implement because it's something that takes time. And I think a lot of people don't have the patience to work that out and work on it. The amount of people that are like, oh, but how do you do X? And I'm like, you're not going to like the answer that I'm going to give you because it's going to take practice. Like so much of it comes down to your relationship with self and your ability to be honest with yourself. And that's not an overnight fix.
And that seems to be really hard for a lot of people, is like actually taking radical self-responsibility for themselves and their life and the results that they've created. Like it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. Yeah. And a lot of people do not like hearing that, but I just think it would be a disservice to not really share that because, people... Like we all go through things like
100%.
There's no worse or better or whatever. Like we all go through hard things. I know you've gone through some really hard things at times, and I know I've gone through some really hard things, and I know a lot of the people I look up to, in fact everyone I look up to has gone through some extremely hard things.
I love that quote.
Yeah. And I actually think that most of them are where they are because of who they became and how they overcame those hard things, essentially. So it is their hard things that have made them to some degree
100%.
Because of how they chose to navigate it, because it can also break you.
You don't get to choose the moments or the circumstances that define you, but you do get to decide what they mean.
And that's why, like, a quote that I know that you and I both love is that life is happening for you and not to you because, like, you choose the meaning. And so make it mean something that serves you. Like, if I was to look at, obviously, who we are as an accumulation of so many things, like our DNA, our values, our, circumstances.
Like nature, virtues, and nurture.
Yeah, like all of the things, right? But if you were to ask me, like, why I am the way I am or why I'm doing what I'm doing, if I had to pinpoint like three major things that contributed to it, they're like three like fucking hard times I went through, like the shittest things I've gone through. And it's like, it's who I became in the process of navigating that led me here. Like I would not have, and I know this is the same for you because it's something we speak about a lot, but it's like, I would not have the drive, the dedication, the passion, the why, the care factor that I have if I didn't go through those things and know what the opposite feels like.
100%. And I think like for anyone everyone's been through something, but for people that are like, I've
really
got this,
in it.
Yeah, in the thick of it, or have this really hard story, it's like, I think it's about getting to a point where not only are you kind of like at peace with what your circumstances and your story are, and grateful for that, but I think, have you heard that thing where it's like if everyone put their problems on the table, we'd really quickly pick up our own again? Like we like to like think the grass is greener. Yeah. If you had everyone's problems on the table, you would so quickly pick up your own again.
And I'm sorry, but if you are listening to this episode, there's a lot harder out there because there are people that don't even have access to a resource that could get a podcast into their ears. Like majority of the world, I would go to say.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that stat's not accurate, but a big chunk of the world, like don't even know what headphones are, like,
I mean,
or a podcast is.
This is a tangent, but I guarantee a lot of them would be happier too.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, you're grateful for it, but you also, I look at it and I'm like, I would not trade the shit that I've gone through for anything in the world. And I think that's where you're trying to get to with that thing, and it sounds so bizarre until you're at that point.
Yeah.
But if you can get to that point, it will, regardless of what it is, be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah, like some of the really, really hard things that I went through, when I was in the middle of that, if you had told me like, oh, in 3 years' time, you'll actually be grateful for this, I would have been like, fuck you. Like, no, this is horrible. But now I'm like, wouldn't change a thing for a second. I'd go through it again.
But you're also taking your power back from it, right?
Totally. And took responsibility for the situation. Again, I think people can mix up the word responsibility with like blame or fault, but it's actually the complete opposite. It's like if you blame anything outside of yourself, or if you even blame yourself, all you've done is taken your own power away to have the ability or control or power to do something about it. And so responsibility just gives you that power, whether it's your fault or not.
Yeah. It's like you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond to it.
100%. And it's so true. And like I spent a lot of my life blaming other people and situations for why my life was the way it was. And I can tell you, I did not move forward in those times where I was doing that. And something we were talking about at dinner off mic was around, you know, who's it actually hurting when you're blaming?
Yeah.
It's hurting yourself. It's not actually hurting the other person or the other circumstance.
No,
you know,
not at all.
No. And so I think that's really important to recognize. It's like you're hurting yourself, and is that really serving you? And if it is, go for it. But if it's not,
it's definitely not.
No, it's definitely not. And so like then okay, well what are you what hard are you going to choose? Because it's hard to continue to sit in that. Like that is hard in of itself.
Yeah, and I think people underestimate that. Like we focus so much on the hard that we have to go through to get somewhere else, and we do not spend enough time focusing on the fact that it's hard staying where we are as well. That's why it feels shit.
Yeah.
They're both difficult.
Yeah, they are. And I think this conversation is actually so important. I think it can trigger a lot of people, but I think it would be a disservice to not share the reality of like, you know, it's meant to be hard at times. And if it were really that easy, would it even be worth it? Like, would it be worth it if it were that easy?
Yeah. You're going to have to remind me because you'd posted it. What was the thing you put up about 5% the other week?
Most good things are hard.
Is that what the post was?
That's what it says.
Oh, okay. So you had most good things are hard, and I responded and I was like, great post. And
what I said on it, I was like, this is a quote by Gary Vee though. This is what he said. He was like, a lot of you want amazing things, incredible outcomes, and I genuinely think the ability to understand the below, which is that most good things are hard, is a huge factor. When one can understand that the special top 5% lives require being able to get through hard times, hard work, obstacles and adversities, and isn't just handed to you, it allows them to fall in love with the process and the gritty times, which actually allows them to get there.
Yeah. So you posted that in your story and I responded and I was like, I love this. And you said, I just wish more people understood this though. And I was like, but they're not supposed to. Otherwise it wouldn't be the top 5%.
Yeah, that's what you said. Yeah. And I was like, mic drop.
But like that is my point. I think it's like,
true. Do you want to be that
it's not
5%?
Meant to be easy because if it was easy, it wouldn't be the top 5% or the top 1% because everyone would be there.
Yeah.
And I think people...
And then it's like...
Not special,
It's not special.
No. So it's like you're choosing that. It's like, yes, you don't need to do it, but you need to do it if you want to be in the top 5%.
It's just like walking up like a really high mountain. It's like that reward after like an hour or hours of walking up that mountain. It's so rewarding. Is it rewarding because you're up there? No, it's rewarding because it was so hard to get up there and now you're up there. And so if it was
and not
easy,
everyone's up there.
If you just clicked your fingers and you were up there, would you feel like, oh my God, yes, we did it?
Yeah.
Like, no, like we drove up here or whatever. Like, it's like, it's not as special, you know?
And I think people also have to recognize, like, if there's people listening to this and they want to get to whatever the end destination is for them, it's not going to be a linear, easy, straight journey there.
Rainbows and butterflies.
Exactly. And I'm speaking to this in terms of playing the long game as well. You don't get there if you're only willing to do it for a short amount of time. And I think you can listen to, I mean, I know we're both big podcast listeners, big readers, whatever. Find me a successful person that was actually an overnight success, that didn't have all the shit beforehand that just no one decides to talk about. They don't exist.
Yeah. And if they did, they're not very fun to listen to.
No.
We actually are not interested in listening to people
Exactly.
that have that.
And like anyone you admire did not have a straight path, didn't get everything handed to them.
If they did, but you fucking hate them. You're like, cool.
Yeah.
Don't relate.
Exactly. But then we try and, I don't know, shame ourselves into being something different. Or we honestly get a little bit entitled, I think. It's like, I've been doing this for 2 minutes and I want that.
Because the world has access to so much instant gratification these days that we're so used to it. It's like, why isn't this coming instantly? Because we have access to change our state so easily now by like choosing to just like open our phone and get all these notifications or scroll, or like we just can get access to things that will change how we feel immediately. Whereas like the hard things that like really, really matter don't come with that instant gratification, and our brain can get very confused by that.
Yeah. But I mean, also as we've spoken to before, the problem also lies in how everyone else is telling their story and portraying that. And it's so much more glamorous to be like, oh my God, this happened to me. It would be so much more glamorous for me to be like, oh my God, I posted one thing and voila, 30,000 followers.
And like, yes, that happened.
Yeah, but it's
something
just,
of that. But also so many other things before that. Yeah.
And it's just not the truth. And I think the problem is because so many people either sell their story as an overnight success because it sounds better, or externally it's pushed upon them and it's like, oh, this person was an overnight success. It creates a narrative that's how it happens. So then people are in their own
like
life.
I didn't have that journey. I don't have a special story. I actually have clients that say that to me. Like when they first start working with me, they get really caught up with, you know, who they're going to help and sharing their journey. And I've had so many people say like, I just don't have a story. And I'm like, bullshit.
You are the story.
Yeah. It's like, just because your story doesn't sound like, you know, one of those like glossy stories out there that are likely not true doesn't make your story not valuable. It's yours is real, and like it means something to you and to other people, you know.
Yeah, people love real. And I think in that situation, it's just like there's other people that have the same story as you, and that's who you're talking to. I think I said this to you off mic earlier, but something I've learned, if you even look at like the numbers and the metrics for a second in terms of like how many people resonate and relate to things that I write, it's like we're actually not that special. How can that many people feel something from words? Like there's a collective feeling, emotion, experience that allows that many people to resonate with me saying something. And I think it's really opened my eyes to how much we kind of like think we're more unique than we are sometimes. And the way that you feel other people feel. And the flip side to that, I know even in our friendship group, it's like before we knew each other, you might feel like isolated or whatever, and then you start meeting people who are in the same realm or sphere or trying to do big things like you are, and you kind of, the struggles of that are normalized. Like every single one of us has days where we're full of doubt or like fear about something when you're trying to do something new. And it's like, I don't know if you feel the same, but it's opened my eyes so much to like, I doubt myself less in moments like that now because it's become
that
so
other people experience it,
because everyone does. But until you have the exposure to that, or until more people are honest about that, which I don't think enough of people are, you think that it's about you when really it's just part of the process.
And like I think discernment is part of this process in the sense that like it's hard to justify everything to share a story. It's like I could share my story,
100%,
and it would take me literally like hours and hours if I was to share every single detail, and like to be honest, every up and down. It's like people don't have time for that.
It's also like not anyone's business.
No, it's not. And so like there is a part of discernment on like when people share their stories, just know that there are a million ups and downs all within that. And you know, you just need to be able to recognize.
Well, you're getting an overview. Like what's most people's stories? Like 5-10 year time frame in 2 minutes. I think there was a little bit more involved.
Exactly. And so it's like it's also about the listener to perceive things with discernment and recognizing that of course, you know, like they're doing the best they can, like let's assume positive intent here. Like everyone's doing the best they can to share, you know, their story in the in the best way possible and the most interesting way possible, and just know that there's always more to the
I think
story.
a lot of the time it doesn't come from the person though. It comes from other people, and it's more, I don't know whether it almost like it's easier to say, oh my God, that happened to them so quickly, than it is to admit the fact that there was 5 years before that, because it makes us feel better about the fact like, oh my God, they just got lucky.
Yeah.
That just happened, instead of saying, wow, they really like worked silently for 5 years and then something changed for them. It's like any artist in the world. It's like have some breakthrough moment. And they're like, oh my God, overnight success. And they've been like touring pubs or something for 10 years. Like it's the part of the story that no one reports on. And I guess that's what I'm saying is like be aware of the fact that that's the part of the story that isn't, it's not the glamour part, so it's not the part that people focus on, but it's always there.
So really, to summarize this entire conversation, it's really about listening to what it is you want to do, like your passions, the nudges you're being pulled towards, and trusting that guidance.
You know, I'm super passionate about that.
Yeah. So that's one thing, because that's what you shared in the beginning of like you just started this because you felt passionate about it. It was never about some metric.
Yeah, you just got to trust what you feel called to do, I suppose.
So that was one part, and then within that, how can you enjoy the journey, knowing that it will be a journey?
Yeah.
It'll likely be a long journey. There's going to be ups and downs. And to be in it for the long run, you need to focus on the right things and you need to prioritize the right things in order to do that sustainably. So what does that look like for you, and how can you take responsibility around that and tweak and refine as you go? That was a big part on what you shared.
Yeah, and like on that, I would say I also live by the fact you only fail if you quit. How can I fail at what I'm doing if I don't stop? You can change direction, you can pause, you can slow down, but if I'm going to keep trying and pivoting and doing things, how can it ever not work?
And you never know when things will turn around, like you said.
Yeah, you never get to find out if tomorrow is the day that everything changes if you quit today.
And don't have this unhealthy, messed up expectation that tomorrow will always be that day either, because you're in it for the long run. Yeah.
But you never know.
Yeah.
You don't get to find out which day is the day everything changes in advance. But if you don't keep moving, you never get to find out.
Yeah. And I feel like we should, because you and I are both major Luke Combs fans, you should share that story, because you went to his concert the other week, around his journey. For anyone that you share. Yeah.
We are big fans. I also think it's a really good opportunity to admit, like, I have been a huge fan of his for a couple of years. A few years ago, even 2 years ago, he would have been my most played song on Spotify. Knew nothing about the bloke, and I think that's really important to say up front. And I am the first person to admit I went to this concert. I love his music. I could probably sing you the lyrics. Like, I'm not doing it. Please don't ask me to do that. Most of his songs. But I couldn't have told you any of his story. And I think that's kind of important, because it also shows, like, for people when they're on their journey.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, but no one cares as much as you think they do. Like, he makes great music. I didn't research what happened, right? But I think that's important, because I'm the first person when I'm telling this story to admit I made a lot of assumptions. And I think people do that a lot too.
And very subconsciously as well.
Yeah.
Successful person, this and this would have
So
happened.
subconscious. So, yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago, went to his concert, best thing ever, as a disclaimer. If you're ever anywhere.
Died to have gone to it.
If you're ever anywhere where you can go and see him, I highly recommend it. And we're definitely going again.
I love him.
When he comes back. I love that you love him when you only found out about him like 6 weeks ago too.
I'm a very obsessive
human
listening,
being. I introduced her to him. So one song and you were sold. So I didn't know anything about him, and he basically, as they do at concerts, said, like, this is a little bit about me. And he said, I'm 33 years old, which for starters, when I say subconscious, I don't know, expectations, I was immediately like, oh my God, which sounds so ridiculous.
Did you think he was older?
I hadn't thought about it. And I think that's the first thing someone said to me afterwards. They were like, well, how old did you think he was? And I'm like, I honestly had not thought about it for 2 seconds, but I think I had this oh my God reaction, because like I'm about turning 30 soon, and 33 is quite close to my age. And I think when you have these people, like, he's successful on a whole other scale, you just have this subconscious, like, I don't know, assumption. I was like,
but there's so much separation. When really, like, you're actually close in age, and that means it's possible for you too.
We're nearly the same age, and you're like, I don't know, touring to million. He's got like, I don't even know how many million listens on Spotify. Like that threw me. That's his first line. I'm 33 and I'm like, holy shit, really? Which is so stupid when you say that, because if you look at a photo of him, you're like, well, no shit, he's 33. But I just hadn't thought about it. And that's how much I'm saying I made assumptions. So yeah, he's 33 years old. He taught himself to play guitar when he was 21, which again, second place that I've made an assumption, because I don't know. I'd never consciously thought about it, but I assumed he just played music forever. I'm checking myself on that point. But yeah, taught himself to play guitar when he was 21. Hopefully I'm getting all of this right. Moved to Nashville when he was 24 and had never been on a plane until he was 25. And that's significant because like at this point, he's American, never been on a plane till he's 25. And I'm watching him at concert in Australia. Yeah. And I think this is his third time in Australia. So,
and he booked out all of his concerts here in Australia
3 minutes.
In under 3 minutes.
Yeah, and they put more on.
And he had only learned how to even play guitar like
12.
Didn't you say 25?
21.
Oh, 21.
Hadn't been on the plane till he
was.
Oh,
yeah, 21. Yeah, 12 years ago. That's like not a long time.
No, well, not considering, I mean, I've only liked him for a couple of years.
People sit on the fence considering making one decision for 12 years.
Yeah, and I think the important part of that, which is an extension of that, he was speaking to how he went to college not knowing what he wanted to do, and all of his friends, you know, knew what they wanted to do. He tried a couple of different majors, and he was speaking to the fact that he was like, I just don't understand, like, why do I not know what I want to do? How does everyone else here, like, they're 19 and they've got this all figured out, and I just like don't have my thing. And then he picked up a guitar, and he said from the moment he played his first song, like that was it. There was no plan B.
There was no plan B, went all in.
Yep, that's what he was going to do for the rest of his life. And obviously he said, I didn't expect that I would be playing in Australia, but like it wouldn't matter where in the world I was doing this. This is what I would be doing. Yeah. And I think...
So no expectations, in it for the long run, following his passion.
Yeah.
So literally everything you shared in this whole podcast was his journey.
Yeah, but also one of the biggest golden nuggets in that, as an extension to that, I think we assume people that have their shit figured out always knew what they wanted to do. And it's a classic example. Like, obviously you can look at that and be like, oh my God, how amazing. He worked it out at 21, which is obviously great. Like, most people don't work it out that young. I certainly didn't. I still don't feel like I've worked it out, and I'm not 21. But at the same time, it's like you have that assumption with someone who is so highly, you know, worldwide successful that they must have always known, and he didn't. And I think there's so much power in that. Like, you might not get your moment like that at 21, but if you get it at 35 or 40 or whatever, it's still equally powerful.
But also the thing that I find so cool is like the 21-year-old version of him and now the 33-year-old version of him is unrecognizable. Like, he is not in any shape or form living the same life.
No.
And that
even the 25-year-old version of him that had never been on a plane.
It's just worlds apart.
8 years later.
Yeah. So different.
Yeah.
And I think that is just a huge wake-up call that, like, for anyone listening to this right now, your life could be so different in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Yeah. Like, completely unrecognizable. Yeah. And the only way you will know is if you, like, relentlessly go all in. Yeah. And like, not about, you know, bending over backwards, crossing your boundaries, burning yourself out, not listening to yourself, but just like not having a plan B and like being in it for the long run and just like following your heart, which is like what Luke did.
Yeah, well, imagine if he never picked up the guitar too. That's what I thought about.
Which would have been so easy to do. Do you know how easy it would have been to... I'm sure he had people say, can't make money in music.
You're only just starting at 21.
Use your college degree that you just spent all this money and time doing... Like, he would have had people tell him that. And,
you'd think he was crazy,
also
right?
comparing himself to people that had their life figured out at 19, 20, 21 or whatever. And now I'm sure that their life is nowhere near like his is. And that's not, there's no right or wrong or better or worse or there. But it's like, that is also just a reminder to stay in your own lane kind of thing.
And everyone starts at ground zero. Like, he's proof. If you pick up a guitar, like, at 21 and teach yourself to play guitar, and then you look at him now, it's like he had a day one. We just forget that when we're looking at, like, day 500 or whatever.
In school, I had no idea what to do. And all of my friends knew what they were going to study.
Me either.
Several years before. And I had no freaking clue. I found out that I wanted to be a coach at age 21. And up until that moment...
She's still young.
Yeah, I know, but I gave myself a hard time about it
Yeah.
because everyone else I knew at like 17.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I
Whereas
just knew
now
I
you
wanted to
probably-
help people.
Yeah.
And that's very broad.
Yeah. Whereas now you probably recognize like that's young.
Yeah.
Because like I listen to that, which is, I mean, we're giving different perspectives for different people, but like I feel like I've only slightly worked my shit out in like the last 2 years.
Totally.
So I would have been like at least 26 before I even.
Yeah. I thought 21 was so old just because of my environment, and now
Whereas
I recognize that's you're such a baby. Like my sister doesn't know what she wants to do, and she's 21. I'm like, girl, you're in no rush. You do you. Go have fun.
Yeah. Whereas I did a whole uni degree not knowing what I wanted to do.
And
just
now,
because that's
like,
what you should do.
All the people that were in my life at the time that knew several years before me, like,
do they still know though?
I don't know, but I also wouldn't trade lives with them over a heartbeat. So it's like you never know when your time is.
Yeah,
you know?
100%. And you can start at any point.
Yeah. But the moment I found out that life coaching was a thing, it was actually very similar to Luke Combs. Like the moment I found life coaching, I was
plan
like,
B.
this is why nothing has made sense up until this moment.
Yeah, but if you didn't keep moving forward, you never would have got that day.
Yeah, I took immediate action. Hired a coach straight away to teach me how to become a coach. Have not looked back in 4 years.
It's like if you hadn't kept moving forwards, trying things, exploring new things, you never would have found that.
No. I found life coaching off the back of being so fucking lost and confused. That's how I found life coaching. I was like, I had no purpose is what I thought. No confidence, no purpose. So I went to an event and learned that coaching was a thing there. And I was like, oh, this makes sense.
Yeah, but still willing to try things and explore, you wouldn't have been at the event in the
first
first
place. Took major risks. Like, to invest the $1,000 to go to that 4-day event was huge for me at 21 years old. Absolutely huge. And it completely changed my life. And that was hard, right? But I chose that hard. Yeah. Because the situation I was in at the time felt even harder eventually. Yeah.
I wish I could remember some of the specifics, but I'm also like trying to think of something on the flip side for people that like are not in their 20s. And I'm not going to be able to remember the quote, but there's heaps that circulate and it's like this person didn't know this until they were like
J.K. Rowling was like
50, 40 something?
I don't know, something. But she was just like rejected so many times, told she shouldn't write.
And that's like
she has the
best books ever.
Yeah, but just like the most
iconic
books sold in the world after the Bible.
Well, we know you love hope.
And also the guy that created KFC, he was 89 years old when that took off. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't think of any examples, but you get what I mean. My point is just like you don't know when your thing's going to come.
Oprah was told that she wasn't fit for TV.
Yeah, but how old was she when she started her in the world thing? Do you remember?
Pretty young. Ellen DeGeneres the same. I don't know, but she was told she wasn't fit for TV.
Yeah.
And she's like the world's best interviewer now on planet Earth. I love these stories. Okay, so Eric founded Zoom at the age of 41. Zoom really took off in 2019 due to COVID. 41. Well, he founded Zoom at age 41. Anyways, you all get the point.
My point is you could be 25, 50 or 70. Like,
and it doesn't matter. Just keep
going. And also,
going.
like, how cool is that? I always think of that, even though I think...
best is yet to come.
Yeah, you're on a path now, but, like, who knows what wild shit will get
so
into.
much crazy stuff has happened in the last 4 years of my life. Like, stuff that I cannot believe has happened. Like, all... positive things. And that just makes me so excited for what is the next 4 going to look like, because 4 years ago I did not visualize I'd be sitting here doing this, that's for sure.
Yeah, we didn't even know each other 4 years ago.
No.
What random stuff could you end up doing? So I could be 45 and find a whole new career path. Who knows?
Yeah, you got to just keep going and you'll find out.
Correct.
Hey, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Is there anything else you wanna share before we wrap up that you feel like has been left unsaid?
I don't think so. I feel like we've really
rambled.
Rammed a lot of stuff in there.
Let's just film a quick 30-minute podcast.
It is us. We should have known better.
No,
this is like us fun. In a normal. This is pretty much just being privy to like us going for a walk.
Yep. Where can people find you?
Definitely just on Instagram. I would say everything else links from there. So it's just at Salt and Whistle on Instagram.
We will link that below. Definitely go check it out, guys. It's amazing. And then, all of your exciting new updates that are coming very soon will be shared on there for people to find.
Podcast is not out already. It will be very shortly.
Loads of other cool things coming. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks.
Are you ready to create aligned, scalable results in your coaching or service-based business? If so, I'd love to work with you. I support my clients through all stages in business through my signature programs. Rise to Coach, which is for new coaches or service providers wanting to sign their first clients through setting rock-solid foundations. Or we have Rise with Events, my self-paced lifetime access course for those wanting to focus solely on learning how to plan, promote, and present highly impactful online events to grow your business. And Rise to 6, the mastermind for rising coaches to scale to consistent 10K months and beyond. If you are a listener of this podcast, I know one of these programs will be for you, depending on your stage in business. You can click the link in the description to learn more about all of my offers and see if any of these are the right fit for you, or feel free to message me on Instagram at Sofia Bernardi and let's chat. Until then, I'll see you in next week's episode.